your Europa League final?
Wow. My Europa League final was Manchester United, who I think will have a rocky night at Old Trafford, because most of them are these days, against Tottenham. But I'm not convinced. And I don't think Tottenham fans are convinced. But it's going. I'm going to go for an all-English final, barring a disaster, which should be a great Europa League final for those two big clubs. But yeah, I'm just surprised that we are sitting here having this conversation about these two teams from what we've seen for the last 7 or 8 months. So well done to them if they get through. But I do think both legs will have some twists and turns. But probably both teams have given themselves just enough of a gap to squeeze into the final.
And the surprise was what United did in Bilbao against Athletic Club last night.
Yeah, that was a big surprise because, as you know, covering La Liga, Athletic Club are the fourth best team in Spain, and at one point we're pushing to be even higher. Very good manager in Ernesto Valverde, some really good players, best defensive record in Spain. So United's 3 goals were excellent, albeit there was down to 10 men after 37 minutes when Vivian got sent off. But yeah, that was a big surprise when you look at the tail of the tape of the two teams this season. United have been appalling basically in the league, and much better in the Europa League. So that was a big performance from them. A big surprise, great atmosphere in Bilbao. Fans were frustrated with the referee, it seemed. But I think, in terms of United's performance, definitely the best of the season, maybe asterisks by the sending off. But, great performances from Bruno Fernandes again. Casemiro was excellent. Højlund's work rate, all that sort of stuff, and kept a clean sheet, which is important. But we have seen this United side sort of crumble before at home at Old Trafford. So I know everybody's talking about this All-England final at the moment, but I do think both games, as crazy as this seems, are still in the balance for me.
Yeah, it would be a catastrophic exit for United if somehow Athletic Club were to turn this around.
But don't forget, Matt, Leon scored 4 at Old Trafford.
I was just about to say that. Leon scored 4, but Manchester United scored 5. So
yeah.
Before we get on to Casemiro, because I want to talk about not so much his improvement, because there's been a huge improvement, but what they've done differently with him. I just want to talk quickly about how Athletic Club approach the second leg and how Man United do as well, because United are not going to put everyone behind the ball, because there's no point in doing that. There's going to be gaps to exploit. So how do both sides kind of go into a game where United as the home team lead 3-0 from the first leg away from home?
I think Athletic Club just have to be the team that we know they are. I think the Williams brothers have to be better. There has to be a change up front, I think, in the centre-forward position. There's no doubt about that. And they've just got to attack United's frailties, which are when the crowd turns on United at home and they get frustrated. We've seen this side buckle. Now, from a United perspective, it's about playing not a defensive game, but a smart game. Don't be charging forward like the cavalry and sending 5 and 6 players at once and leaving yourself open, because an early goal puts you under some pressure. And again, we've seen sides score multiple goals at Old Trafford this season, and not just the sides that we would describe as the strongest. So, yeah, I mean, they're in a very, very comfortable position. But what we have seen with both these English sides that we're talking about is that the tide can turn very quickly, and they can have their backs against the wall very quickly. That being said, Athletic Club are not finishing the season as strongly as they would like. They have got some injuries. They missed Sunset yesterday in that game. He's the best attacking midfielder, best goal-scoring midfielder. So they'll be strong at Old Trafford. But there's no doubt both English clubs are the favourites. But I would urge some warning that an early goal or two, and we have seen these sides crumble before.
talk to me about Casemiro, a player who you kind of thought was just going through the motions up until a couple of months ago, but something has changed. What is that something that has meant that Casemiro now, in that kind of holding role, is someone who's like the conductor of the orchestra?
Well, the league form's not really got much better. They've been performed well in Europe, where it's maybe a little bit slower. Yeah, he's been better, but I don't think that's going to be the answer longer term. Thinking about next season, because the legs are going to get slower and heavier, and that's not going to change. So he's definitely in a better spot than he was, because he was struggling. He almost looked embarrassed by his own performances, and this is a guy who was arguably at one point the best holding midfielder, the best destroyer, the best enforcer and bodyguard in world football. You ask Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, but he's unable to do that at the moment. And I do think the sending off certainly helped, because that allowed them to get more control in the middle of the park. They didn't have to do as much chasing around. And so therefore he wasn't asked as many questions. And of course, listen, he can read the game as good as anybody, but it's when he gets exposed in the middle of the park and there's a lot of space in there, I think that's when we've seen him struggle. But certainly last night was one of his better nights, certainly in recent history. Not comparing it to the halcyon days of Real Madrid, but comparing it to, his struggles early on in the season, which I don't think any of us enjoyed watching, where he was making these mistakes and the cameras would sort of pan on him. And this was a guy who, as I mentioned, was the go-to midfield enforcer. And here he is at Old Trafford at that period, really, really struggling with himself. And I think with his emotions, with the crowd sort of getting on his back a little bit. So it's good end to the season for him, it looks like. But going forward, there's going to have to be some big changes in there.
It's like they've stopped giving him the ball from the goalkeeper or from the centre-back when his back is to goal. When he's getting the ball now, he's getting it with everything in front of him. Now, granted, there was an extra man last night. Bigger picture here. Why can Manchester United produce in Europe but not produce in the Premier League?
No idea. Maybe the teams in Europe are a little weaker, but I wouldn't think so. And we could have two teams sitting in 14th and 16th in the Premier League in the Europa League final. What does that say about some of the others in this Europa League, if that is the case? So somehow they've been able to raise their game. The consistency in the Premier League has just not been there. The quality in the Premier League has just not been there. So it is a head scratcher. And I think if United do go on and win this competition, I don't think that should paper over any cracks and say, hey, maybe this squad of players is actually not as bad as we thought. I don't think that's the case. I think the Premier League 38-game season really gives you the indicator of where you are as a squad and where you are as a team. The cup competition is a bonus where you can raise your games. We've seen it in the FA Cup. We've seen it in the Carabao Cup. We've seen it in other competitions. These are great external games where you can enjoy yourself away from the rigours of your domestic sort of, rigours in the Premier League. But winning for example, if Tottenham win and we'll get to Tottenham, I know, but if Tottenham win the Europa League, is Ange Postecoglou's job safe? I'm not sure it is. And so you have to be careful judging how your team is progressing within a run in a certain cup competition.
I'm actually glad you didn't have an answer to that question that I asked, because I don't even know if Manchester United fans
they don't
have an answer. And I don't know if there is one, because I'm just looking at the previous form in the Premier League. They acquired a Højlund very late stoppage time goal to get a point at Bournemouth. They lost at home to Wolves. They got thumped 4-1 at Newcastle. They drew 0-0 against Manchester City, which was much of a game, and they lost 1-0 at Forest. So, yes, they've got more than one foot into the final. They're 3-0 up from the away leg. Brilliant result. It really was. Still got job to do in the second leg.
Bruno Fernandes has expressed his delight after Manchester United's emphatic 3-0 victory over Athletic Bilbao in the Europa League semi-final first leg at St Mames. The Portuguese playmaker was the star of the show, bagging a superb brace that put United firmly in control of the tie. Casemiro opened the scoring with a powerful header before Fernandes took over, showcasing his clinical finishing and leadership on the pitch. Speaking after the match, Fernandes praised his teammates for a focused and dominant performance, We know it would be a tough game away from home, but the team was fantastic from start to finish. Scoring 3 goals and keeping a clean sheet is massive at this stage of the competition. Fernandes also credited manager Ruben Amorim's tactical plan, which exploited Bilbao's weaknesses and kept United solid at the back. With a comfortable lead heading into the second leg at Old Trafford, Fernandes remains cautious but confident. We're halfway there, but the job's not done yet. We need to finish it off in front of our fans.